I got to say, Knew Amsterdam Radio is brought to you part by Anchor FM. Have you ever thought about making your own podcast? You see, when I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? And most importantly, I don't want to deal with cables and wires and all those things. You see, the answer to every single one of these questions is pretty simple. Anchor. Anchor is the one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And you can use your phone, which is pretty awesome. Now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. So if you ever wanted to start a podcast and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. That's anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. Welcome back, citizens, to a brand new episode of Knew Amsterdam Radio. My name is Flobo, boys. I say this every week, but just in case it's the first time you're checking in, thank you so much for doing that. This episode and all the other episodes are available for your listening pleasure over at knewamsterdam.com. That's Knew Amsterdam.com. How is everyone doing? What does your project schedule look like? It's the dog days of August. I don't know about you, man, but I feel like in some ways I'm ramping up, doing more stuff, while at the same time I'm kind of just taking in that lazy summer vibe, especially here in Southern California, where summer tends to stretch out to 8, 9, 11 months out the year, right? Today's episode has a very special guest, Dr. Cortney Beasley. She's special for two different reasons. One, she launched her own platform called Put in Black a little earlier this year, a little early in the quarantine, and I get to pick her brain about that. But she's also the first ever two-time guest to the podcast. She is a returning guest, and it was great because last time she was on, she was talking about leading up to the launch of putinblack.com, but now it's already out there and you can actually head over there now. I wanted to see how it measured up. How did it look like in her mind's eye, and how was it executed? So had a great time, sit down and chat about creative endeavors and mindfulness and being present while you're changing the world one web page at a time. Very, very informative stuff. You know how it is. Without further ado, let's go. Knew Amsterdam Radio is the city for creatives. People are doing things. Put in Black is what we mentioned last time. You were close to launch. Health, wellness, and the Black community, access to information. Yeah, you launched now. Tell me how that felt. Day one, hitting the power button.
Yeah, it's so funny because right now when you just said that, I feel, even though, I know we're about to talk about this, I feel nervous. Like I feel I remember all the anxiety of it and the excitement for it, and just like putting myself out there in this new way, right? Like putting my idea out into the world and then people get to critique it. So yeah. So after I spoke with you, I think at the time that I spoke with you, I was planning to like launch in April or something. And we had just entered quarantine and stuff like that. Dang, we had just entered quarantine.
Hey, we're not going to get out to where we're going. We're going to be here forever.
Oh, man. Yeah, a lot of life has happened since then.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then I ended up pushing it back. I was like, just like rushing to get everything done and didn't really have enough content because the content is based on being able to have conversations with other people in healthcare. So, and I just had this moment when I was talking to someone and she was like, you do know you can push it back, right? Like give yourself permission to push the launch date back if you need to. And I was like, oh, you're right. I just felt my shoulders relax and just, I could breathe a little bit. But it's like this idea that like, I said, I'm going to launch this day. So then I have to launch this day because everyone's the world is holding their breath for my website.
Right. I was. I'm refreshing every day.
So yeah, I pushed it back until May, which was a great choice. And it's been incredible in many ways. I'm seeing myself grow in different ways because of putting myself out there in this way. So then it's influencing other areas of my life. the connections I've made with people who've contributed have been incredible, just beautiful. There's so many people who want to sort of, have some sort of part in this mission to increase health or to improve health in the Black community. There's so many talented artists. Like, that's been the funnest part. It's like when I reach out to someone and they actually respond, I'm like, oh, like, look what happens if you try.
That is like my whole life now. I appreciate it.
Yes.
You said yes.
Right. And you're, you, okay, cool. So it's been a lot too. Like it's been a lot, but it's also been incredible. And I feel so much, I'm growing in so many different ways. I'm connecting with new people. I've met a few people during this quarantine, virtually, but just who are doing dope things. And they've been a part of live conversations that I've had, with the Put in Black platform. And then also have written some articles. So it's turning into all these beautiful things. And it's more now just me kind of being able to catch up and be organized.
I mean, that's kind of cool that one, you recognize it's definitely, it can be very arduous trying to the source and what you really want to curate. 'Cause I think a lot about your site is curation. It isn't just a here's some information. It isn't listicle. It isn't trying to be clickbaity. It isn't here's 10 vegetables you could eat to feel better about yourself. It's very interactive. But I do like the fact the conversations, it seems like you're very heavy hitters in those spaces. Is there any kind of areas you wish to hit upon in the future as far as your conversation series is concerned?
Yeah.
She can't tell me all the secrets up front. That's what it is. What can I share to the public?
No, it's just funny. If you knew the word that came to mind. So, silly. So I definitely want to talk about reproductive health, women's reproductive health specifically, because there's so many. I mean, men's too. It's just that I have a person in mind. But with women, there's so much stuff we don't talk about, and there can be a lot of shame around our bodies and what they do and what they don't do, and that's something for sure. I've had conversations just about the relationships we have with our parents, and then how that's showing up in our relationships now, and not doing it in a very I'm not trying to do therapy with anybody, but just in a we're people and we all have this in our lives, right? Regardless of who was your caregiver or whatever, those early experiences and how that shows up today, that kind of stuff. And there's people that I have in mind to touch on some of that. So one of my favorite things is just touching on stuff that we all know is there, but we don't have many conversations about it. Yeah. And another thing was, so one that's not on my site is we had a conversation about relationships just in general. But there was, of course, a focus on romance because we love to talk about those relationships.
Exactly. Find your person and all that.
Yeah. And that was pretty cool because I still have had conversations with people who are and then they're still reflecting on it. That was the first conversation I had for Put in Black. And that was beginning of June, I think, maybe. And people are still and remember this part of the conversation. And it's kind of led to other self-reflection and noticing things in relationships. And that is so cool.
What is next for Put in Black? I mean, it's out there. The launch is out there. So we got some of the novelty out there. You're working at the kinks. What does it look like? How does it grow? What is vision for 2.0, stage 2, phase 2 of putinblack.com?
Yeah. Thanks for asking, because I find myself being very just trying to catch up with things that are going on right now, right? And just making sure things are good right now, but it's a beautiful thing to look forward to. So, I mean, hopefully we'll be able to see each other in person one day. And I have this, it's not even a dream, but I have this vision in my mind of bringing people together who the contributors who have written articles, or I've written one based on our interviews, or that kind of stuff, coming together. I don't know if it would be a conference kind of thing or a brunch kind of thing, but just really taking that sense of a community to another level, right? And just the connection and hey, you're not the only one out here who cares about us, and you're not alone in this. Like, let's support one another. Because being the people who are like creating these things can get tiring too. And we got to like feed each other, and the people who are reading and who are listening to things that are on Put in Black, like them being a part of that and understanding their power too, and how they contribute to our health and all of that. And then, I'll continue to do talks with different organizations. That's been pretty dope. So through Put in Black, like through sharing that and then meeting people, I've been giving talks just based off my like experience in psychology, and that's been cool because I've still been connected to do like the forensic world, which I think I might have brought up in the last episode, that my work previously was in forensic psychology. And so I've been able to do talks for like lawyers and things like that. So I'm still like, I'm seeing the things that I've like put my intentions towards actually manifest. It's wild. Yeah.
How does that work for being called as an engagement for speaker speaking or presenting or that kind of thing? Is it like a unsigned hype hip hop group for psychologists? Is it a website? How does someone find someone to come through and talk about forensic psychology?
That's so funny. No, so I'm absolutely figuring it out as I go. So I've talked to my colleagues / they're my friends, and I'm like, hey, like, so someone asked me if I could do this thing, and like, what do you guys think about this? What's your experience? And they're like, we don't know. So it's
that's good.
Yeah. Thankfully I have like some pretty cool like women in my life who have developed their own businesses, and like a mentor and different mentors, and that's kind of been helping me like go along in this process, because I'm learning as I've been going, and it's been more like someone has noticed something on my profile, like LinkedIn or something, and they're interested in that, like the things that I care about. And so, hey, do you want to like lead a conversation on this? And then that person, like based on that, maybe someone from that group will then say like, hey, what about for this group? So it's really just been like a cool, like seeing this just like flow of things happen. And I was talking to a friend about this, and I was like, yeah, it's like, it's just happening. I didn't even do anything. Like, it's just like, I didn't even have to ask for it. And she's like, Cortney, you did ask for it. Cause I've been like writing down my intentions and like speaking them and been like focused on what I want to do. And I literally like last year, this time I was in Bali, and I like wrote down what I wanted to be doing in my life and how I want my career to look. And it was I wrote something along the lines of like, I want to be doing trainings for attorneys. Like, that's what I want to do. Literally, that is what I'm doing.
So okay, now you can't just say that and be like, drop mic, I'm out. But like, how does that work? Because the secret is always about manifesting to the universe. And I'm a firm believer in making bucket lists, one for the life and one for the year, writing things down. But you telling me you wrote down what you thought, what you think success will be, and a year later you're actually doing what you're doing. A year.
Crazy. Like, really, like that was the time that I wrote that was like late June, early July. I remember it because there was so much going on in my life at that time. And I remember, I probably have the piece of paper somewhere here. But I remember being like, I don't know what to write. Like, this doesn't even really work. Blah. Whenever people would tell me like to write down things, I'm like, okay. But I wrote it down, and then I started working. I know. And then I started working on Put in Black. And I think also just getting more into like meditation and yoga. That's been life-changing. But yeah, like when you actually believe, right? If you have faith and you're not like, and like where you put your attention, right? It grows. So I could talk about that all day. Cause that was like, when I really sat and thought about it, I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening?
You know what? I want to say thank you again for coming on Knew Amsterdam Radio. I can't wait until you're the most famous, on demand for lawyers. Yeah. I don't know how that works. Get your own app or whatever.
Yeah. Like and not just for lawyers, for like different organizations. And then the next time, like, you'll be growing too. And I'll be like, remember the time when we were talking and it was the quarantine, and now that'll be
so intense
great.
with my breathing now. You have no idea.
You're going to be like certified in meditation, and I'm going to be asking you questions.
Yeah. But where can the world follow you online and support your brand and support your other projects right now?
So putinblack.com, all the social media links are on there. So yeah.
That's right. The summer of doing continues. Knew Amsterdam Radio is a podcast for creatives just like yourself. People out there that are making things happen with an idea and putting that plan to action. And of course, if you have a industry or sector you want me to focus on, don't hesitate to reach out. You see, my name is Flobo Boys, the host of this show, and you can check me out on Twitter at Flobo Boys, on Instagram at Flobito, and of course, Flobito.com. If you want to hear more about Dr. Beasley and Put in Black, you see every interview I have on this podcast is an extended version. And you get exclusive access by becoming a patron on Patreon. That's Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/Flobo Boys. You get to see or hear all of the unabridged interviews from the guests here at Knew Amsterdam Radio and, of course, newamsterdam.com. And I can say this now, Knew Amsterdam Radio has its own official merch, has its own official t-shirt. You can get that over at Flobito. That's Flobito at flobito.threadless.com. Show your Knew Amsterdam pride that you are a citizen for the city, for creatives. But until next time, this city is yours.